Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Approved Perspective podcast powered by Approved Social. Mike, how are you, sir?
Pretty good.
Now, I saw on LinkedIn, it looks like you're at an event right now. How's that going?
I just left, so I think it may look like I am, but I just got back last night, and it was for Chad Willardson. It was freaking amazing. Holy cow.
Cool.
Just, really astonishingly cool people, and it's a brand new event put on by a guy who's a wealth manager. He manages, multi-billionaires. Like, he's a player, and he's private jet. He's got all the goodies and stuff, but he's a baller. He's not a dick at all, like a genuinely decent person. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So and I taught AI and my usual shtick.
Sure.
But it was like such a good group of curated business owners. And they came from, do you know Ben Hardy? He's the guy who wrote 10X is better than 3X for Dan. He wrote all of Dan Sullivan's latest bestselling books.
Interesting.
3 of them.
Okay. No, I didn't know that. I'll have to check him out.
He's a baller. The guy's a baller. And then Chad is this, just like high values, super high integrity. And, Chad's got, like you see he's a guy who earned his jet and deserves it. He's just not a dick.
Right.
And he's got,
those are I've met a few of those guys. So for the inauguration, I flew in one of the commissioners, jet, and he was also a billionaire. Nice guy though, really interesting. And flown on another one with a friend, and again, so down to earth, you would never know. In fact, the guy never buys anything new. I mean, he buys a Toyota Tundra truck that's, low profile, and it's incredible, those folks out there who have been able to stay humble, stay to their roots, and also still have a jet. I mean, they need that. I get that.
Yeah, you got to be a baller to do that. Like I don't have a lot of toys, but I do have a funky car.
You're a car guy?
Sort of. I have a Lotus.
Oh wow, yeah, cool.
And it's a freaking race car. It's a genuinely cool ass vehicle.
That's fun, man. So do you drive it? You take it to the track, or is that?
I don't. I made a decision a long time ago, which is I'm not going to beat the hell out of my car and ruin it on a track. There's just too many things that can go wrong. I drive it like I'm on a track all the time.
Yeah.
And so
the people that I watch on the track, I mean, they're constantly going through transmissions and clutches and all sorts of things.
Yeah. I have no need to almost die. I'm past that time in my life where I'll go 130 once in a while just because I'm evil, but not really. But I mean, I shouldn't.
I know. I get it. We've theoretically in our minds gone fast in cars. I used to have a motorcycle, and I definitely didn't go past the speed limit in that thing. It was totally legal all the time.
I'm sure.
But no, you get to a point where you go, wait a minute. The percentages that I used to not care about, like 30% die, whatever it is, I don't know. It's high. Now I care because I have a kid and I have a wife and I have things that mean something to me, and I'm not, 21 years old anymore. And actually, that's interesting. So, Mike, first off, thank you for coming on the podcast. We're excited to have you, Mike. You've had a lot of experience. It's been cool to dig in a little bit, learn a little bit about you. I didn't realize when we first talked that you had to go through cancer, that you've written a book about that. It's called The Cancerpreneur. And you have written, I want to say 12 to 15 books.
19.
Is that correct?
Just finished the
19. Okay.
Yeah. The AI
Very
book
cool.
Is the 19th. So,
and I'm excited to get into that too. So, but first, talking about taking risks and stuff. as someone who has gone through cancer, who has gone through that journey, I think every entrepreneur understands sort of the same thing. They maybe even haven't gone through cancer, but they've sort of experienced something like it sometimes.
Hmm.
It can be the driving force to become an entrepreneur. It can be the driving force out of entrepreneurship. How
Yeah.
did that impact you? I mean, I haven't read the book, but I'm very curious to and hope to. But I'd love to just hear from you on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who knew me from 20 or 30 years ago and then knew me going through cancer and then after cancer would say they like the post-cancer Mike a lot better. Um,
Interesting.
and part of that is cancer creates empathy and empaths.
Mm,
Um, and when you really go through it, at least for me, speaking for myself, what happened was your body endures so much pain. You learn to, um, like work past it. In other words, I wrote this in the book, how I became a non-judgmental observer of this body, and I really felt connected, to God. I was raised a Catholic. I married a Jew. I was married by a Native American Lakota. Okay, so I put myself in
interesting.
the spiritual category.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Meaning I'm not a good belonger, and if there ever was a religion, I started one. I wouldn't be a good
Yeah.
belonger. Never been one of those.
Yeah.
I don't like being in
Yep.
buildings with crowds. Mobs make me very nervous. But having said that, like what happens is you really experience the boundaries of the flesh,
Mm,
and you cannot help but have to live in a meditative state in order to survive. And so, and I went and had surgery. Then I had several months of chemotherapy, which is horrible. And
mm,
12 years ago, chemo is very different than nowadays chemo. And then I went and had
right.
33 radiation treatments, which would be like, just imagine if every day you had broken glass and lava in your body, and you can't hold anything down. On my worst day, I was on the toilet 33 times. So
Mm,
everything's bleeding. It is miserable.
it's horrible.
And you can I had maybe 5 seconds to run to the toilet. It's like when you get
God, I'm so
it's like
sorry.
nothing stays in you. It is fire and ice, and like I say, it's like broken glass. So and then when you meet a child who's endured that, I can remember I was at
Mm,
dinner shortly
yeah.
after my treatment with a friend, and this dad said, "Hey, my son just finished cancer treatment too," and we shared our port scars. So he showed me his scar, and I had one too, and it was sort of like a mark of being in a special club, even though it's like,
Mm,
my God, how could that possibly happen to an innocent like a child?
yeah.
So it just opens up your heart. That's a long-winded way of answering your question, but yeah, and I think it
Yeah.
makes you a better
Yeah.
dad. It makes you a better human. It makes you a better husband. It makes you a better business owner.
It's funny how going through these traumas in life, for those people who are able to see another side and to push through, really, I mean, you sort of have to be able to find that inner strength to move forward. And I think that's what you're talking about, being like a meditative state and things like that, where you have to start practicing these things that we've been told for so long, and maybe we push off because we're just strong. Like most people who are entrepreneurs like you and like me, we can accomplish a lot. We can push past probably a lot of pain. And at the end of the day, I think when you get held back by something that is out of your control completely, you kind of have to make that decision. Am I going to push past this and try to live in spite of this, or am I going to let it overtake me completely?
Mhm.
We recently just went through some health struggles with my son. I think I may have mentioned this to you before, but
Mhm.
he had severe eczema to the point where his skin would essentially rub off onto things, um, and just how interesting that feels when you're completely incapable of solving that problem, and that
Yeah,
even physicians, are not really able to provide you with a whole lot of hope. And
so true.
but in spite of those things, it feels like to me every time a new situation happens, as you get older, you start to parents, have health issues and, you start losing people and whatnot, it seems like we're able to get the strength to continue on somehow. And that, I think, is sort of that entrepreneurial spirit also that sort of shines through in that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard countless stories like this. And I love to start with something personal about the people that we have on the podcast, because it just really helps to connect the dots between this person and myself are really not a lot different. We're going through
Mm-hmm.
similar struggles. We have similar things. And how do we push through those? And we can model after people like you, Mike. And I think that's a real encouragement to anybody who is out there listening today. And obviously, I do want to get into the AI stuff, and I think that's important. I want to talk about the new AI plan that you have, and I believe the strategy and whatnot. So I do want to talk about that. But as you know, our listeners are a lot of agencies. There are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people who are internal marketing teams, CMOs, digital strategists, that type of thing. And so as we talk about some of these things today, I know that people are going to find a huge bit of value in this conversation. Now, Mike, you have helped out. You've worked with some big names that a lot of people would know.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to mention, so Tony Robbins, what did you do with Tony? And how's that relationship? Because I feel like he's such a great guy. I'd love to have those personal conversations that I'm sure you've had.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an incredibly fascinating, complex person who's done complex things for complex people. So I went and saw a Tony Robbins event back in 1995 when my life was a wreck. I was about $250,000 in debt. I was overweight, recently divorced. My business was failing. I mean, I was on the verge of bankruptcy. And the short story is I saw an infomercial I bought at the time, CDs. And I listened to like the first 15 minutes, the first CD, and I was like, this guy's for me. And I signed up for all of his stuff. And all I had was a credit card. I was living on a gas card at the time. I was so screwed. And within 6 months after starting his programs, I had turned my life around, lost weight. I became a vegan. I was turned my business around, had met a really wonderful person who we didn't get married, but we're still close to this day. Not my wife, just a good friend and just a high value person. I just got great people in my life. And within another 6 months, we're in the process of selling my business. That was a wreck.
Wow.
So, and if you fast forward a few years, when I moved to San Diego and I had gotten married, the first person I called was my CSR, my customer service representative, Chris Hendrickson, who it turned out his wife is Pam Hendrickson, who had produced almost all of Tony's products for decades.
Interesting.
We became fast friends, and Pam got to know me. And one day she called me up, and I had this company called Traffic Geyser, an instant customer, and we were crushing it online. We were having huge multi-million-dollar launches, making tons of money. And she said, Tony really needs some online marketing help. We don't have an internal group here. Our old school marketing isn't working. Would you meet with them? And I'm like, hell no. No, I said, of course. So I ended up going out, meeting Tony at his house in Palm Springs. I helped him set up a studio. Back then, everything was produced and you had big teams and social media was new. This is in about 2008. So at the time, I was friends with some of the largest marketers in the world: Frank Kern, Jeff Walker, Brendan Burchard, Russell Brunson, Mike Filsaime. And I set him up and he said, well, what else can you do? And I said, well, I know the smartest marketers in the world, and all of us have one thing in common, and that is we all have Tony Robbins stories. And he said, really? I said, yeah. If you'd like, I'll put together a group. You can meet them all, and I think they can help you with your marketing. He goes, all right. So I arranged a meeting, and we got everyone together in a room, and we all agreed that we'd help Tony do a launch. Online marketing style. Cool. This is guru style. And we all promoted this thing, and, it generated a couple $1 million in a week. And then he was like, well, what else? And I said, why don't we create a product? And you had done Power Talk, which at the time was like cassettes or CDs you'd get, and you'd listen to him interviewing people. So it was it was podcasting before there was podcasting. I said,
Yeah.
why don't you interview the smartest marketers in the world? And that became a product called the New Money Masters. And I was one of them. And, Dean Jackson and Yannick Silver, Marie Forleo. So it was men and women, but just guru geniuses. And that was a big hit. And then that also led to coordinating and collaborating with Chet Holmes, who's passed now, to create what became the very first Business Mastery event. And we all were part of that. So, when I started doing AI stuff, I got a call from Tony's team. They asked, well, Tony would love to have you come and teach the Platinum Lions, which is his highest end group of people. And, Tony, first of all, he is a remarkable human being. I love him. And he has 100 businesses. He gets pulled in a zillion directions. Everyone wants a piece of him. And I can get his attention 30 seconds at a time. Okay. Like anyone,
Right.
if you've ever had a relationship with a celebrity, it is nearly impossible to have a genuine relationship unless you are in proximity and working with them on their focused target area. And so if you have a life, and your own business, it's just like, he's amazing. And like when I get his attention and we're together, it's like him and me. Right. And then when you're not, a year can go by or 2 years can go by and you can have nothing more than hey, how you doing kind of a thing. So, that's probably over answering your question, but
no, I love the story.
He's as real as real gets, but I also get, jackass calls once in a while. Hey, I've got this really important thing. Will you put it in front of Tony? And it's like,
please get this in front of Tony.
How stupid are you? Really? You think that if I've got 30 seconds a year, I'm going to put your idiotic request in front of a relationship? He'll never listen to me or trust me ever again.
Exactly.
It would be a sign of incredibly poor judgment. So it's one of the most, that's the one thing is when people know you've got a relationship, you get these moronic requests. And the answer is no. How about spend 10 years or 20 years investing in a relationship like I did? And do for someone else 3 massive things that are significant challenges and earn the right to put your stupid moronic idea in front of them and decide whether or not you're going to waste your reputation on such a thing. So, again, that is again me over answering, but it's not uncommon for me when someone hears it like, oh, ding, 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 I'm going to talk to this sucker and maybe I'll get my angle in. It's like, hell no. Write a check for $1 million to Tony's foundation, pay for all of his stuff, and maybe you'll get a chance and you'll temper yourself.
You're not. I think that's a great lesson for all of us, honestly, in many interactions. Most of the time, we're always, we're looking for an angle or you're looking for a relationship for a specific reason rather than developing just a relationship with someone without an expectation of something in return. And ultimately, those relationships would return something naturally in a very natural way. That's one of the reasons I really loved doing this podcast is because I get to know people and I'm not asking them to do anything. This is just a fun way to learn about you. Maybe you can share some tactics and growth for, secrets for folks. But at the same time, how do we connect with other entrepreneurs? Because most of us now, especially with the post-COVID, if you want to call it post-COVID era, a lot of people are working at home. A lot of people are alone. And it's necessary to have that interaction to drive you forward. It's the reason that we have mentor groups and masterminds and whatnot. And so, very excited. And so Mike, Tony says, Mike is an extraordinary man. He brought me insights on how to reach people on the internet that are so valuable. This is the man you should deal with. Take advantage of what he has to offer. So folks, we have Mike joining us. I'm super excited to talk a little bit about the AI stuff that you've been working on. You mentioned that. How long have you been doing AI? Because for me, it's been like the last year or two, but I think people have been using it a lot longer. And I'd love to hear how you got into that.
This is going to age me, but I started coding in the 70s. So I laid my hands on a computer and I started using modems when it was something called an acoustic coupler, when you had a wired handset that you'd have to set into two foam pads and it would communicate at 110
No
to
way.
300 baud. Okay, that means how many bits per second. So it was like
Oh my God.
old stuff. So back then there was a programming language called list processing, which was at the time one of the first AI languages that were available. So AI goes back to the 70s. I dabbled and I certainly played with some early programming languages. One of them was called Modula 2, which was a kind of like a well, maybe not pre. There were a variety of structured programming languages. One was Pascal, Modula 2 is C, and then C++ and C#. It evolved. And then eventually the internet came along, the early web, which decimated good programming. It created absolute garbage like JavaScript and crap languages that were like, it literally set us back 10 years.
Interesting.
God, I sound like an angry old man, but it was like unbelievable, because back in the old days when we'd code, you write really tight machine language that was tiny. And this is, you had to put something on a floppy disk, and to transmit something over online. We used to do like marketing promotions pre-internet. That was, we'd use like CompuServe, Prodigy, America Online, and they were all separate. It was like separate internets. They all had their own dial-up services that you'd get on. You'd have to wait sometimes through a busy signal to get on. It wasn't always on. And and so I'm giving you that backstory because I dabbled with AI, and then over the years there were different tools, but it always sucked. It was like the early days of before there was a web browser, which a web browser was like a universal tool that we could get on stuff. And there was a universal way of building pages, and it changed, we went from newspapers and yellow pages to online directories, all that kind of stuff. So I look at AI now, and it's a whole new environment. It's a whole new language with lots and lots of power behind it. So when OpenAI published ChatGPT in November of 2022, I dug in like that week, and I was like, I know this is bigger than the internet by orders of magnitude, not an order of magnitude. And I was and I started doing internet stuff back when there was not an internet, and I was doing online stuff long before it was mainstream, and I was coding long before, but I'm not worth $1 billion. Okay. I'm not worth 100 million. And it's because I felt like I didn't get it. And I had some sour experiences. And I'll go off on one little tangent here, but like I had an agency early on. It was called Digital Cafe. There's a little story behind this. And we started in 1989 and sold it in 1999. And so we were doing online digital marketing before there was an internet. Well, before there was a practical one. And so I remember one time I got approached by someone in the porn industry, and they're like, hey, I want to create this online store. And there wasn't credit card processing yet. Okay. The internet was brand new. CD-ROMs were like the way of moving stuff around, and you could buy a CD and it had a game on it. Or in his case, he was selling pornography. And I can remember I was like, no way am I touching that. Now, it's because of pornography that credit card processing came into being. It's really why high-speed internet took off. There's porn and is created a lot of opportunities, but I had such a bad taste after that. I was like, screw online stuff. I ain't touching that.
Right.
Well, Amazon comes along a little bit later, or, and everything else. And I was like, damn it. Why didn't I see some of these obvious changes? So in a weird way, this time I've just kept my eyes open, my brain open, and I'm not being biased by old thoughts. And when I look at AI, this is going to change society. It's going to change humanity, and it could for better or for worse. I believe in general, it's going to be for the better.
I do hope so. I do hope so.
Yeah.
It seems like
Mhm.
there is a lot of really cool tools coming out and a lot of really interesting things happening now. I mean, from my experience, I remember obviously getting our first computer and but different, probably a little bit later, but
Mhm.
um, still just the changes that have occurred from then when you would maybe use it for some Word or something like that to now
Mhm.
when you can do everything that you need to do in an iPhone. But with the emergence of AI and its ability for everyone to access it, um, it's kind of incredible what you can do. And I think a lot of people that I'm talking with, agencies, internal marketing teams, marketers, they're struggling right now. Honestly, this is a time when I'm hearing a lot of feedback from people that are saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about going into consulting. I'm thinking about
Mhm.
doing something else, shutting down the agency." And I totally get it because right now I think everybody's going, well, why not try a copywriting AI for a few
Mhm.
months or a quarter? Let's see, does
Mhm.
it impact our bottom line that much to not use our copywriting team and instead bring that in house with a tool? And so
Mhm.
I think that will rebound. I think that's going to change again. I think we'll see more people kind of go, okay, I can't do it all by myself. But I do think we're going to see more consultants because they're going to come in, they're going to go, hey, use these tools. Here's what you can do. Here's the strategy, though, that you need to follow. Here's how you need to train ChatGPT. Here's how you need to, build out your requests and whatnot for that.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons that we even created Approved Social was because we can see that we're going to need to intersect between AI being the creator of content, creative, everything, and us as humans still being the approvers of content. And that's why it's called Approved
Mhm.
Social. So we're trying to intersect there. But for those agencies out there who, I mean, you're an agency owner, you owned and sold your agency. For those people who are out there struggling right now, do you have thoughts and advice on for them?
Yeah.
Like, how do they pivot right now? Because that's a
Yeah.
scary thing too. It's like people are afraid to pivot because they're used to what they've done. But I am
Mhm.
afraid that most people, if they don't pivot right now, we're going to see a lot of people in our world go bye bye.
Yeah. Well, I can go down a
I mean,
couple.
is that a clear? Do you agree with that
Absolutely.
picture, or is it?
Well,
Yeah,
here's the way I would look at it is, the world doesn't need people putting horseshoes on horses anymore because cars came into being. Okay. Um, we don't need people shoveling horse poop in the streets because there are cars. Um, and we don't have people dying of horse poop related diseases because there are cars.
sure,
And
sure.
food doesn't spoil because there are vehicles and roads. And back in the days when you'd spin cotton and it was done manually, and then someone made a spinning machine, and then eventually a cotton gin. But there's a transitional time when people went in and they'd try to destroy and burn down the cotton gins because it was stealing our jobs. So
Mm-hmm.
here's what I'd say is there's no need to have transcriptionists anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Soon the idea of being what's it called, a talk with hands, uh, it's going to be roboticized. It's going to be automated. And we as humans are afraid of change. It's just a natural thing. It looks, technology looks like an enemy at first, and then it becomes normalized very quickly. So my first thing is, if you're attached to a job, that is dinosaur thinking, and don't be a reptile. All right.
Yeah.
And either adapt or die. So, and I think this notion of someone deserves something or deserves, it's moronic. I think it lands in my category of stupid, which is create value. That
Yeah.
is what matters. And
Mm,
your attachment to the past is a disease of the mind. And
yeah.
so let it go. And
Absolutely.
and and that it would be the first thing. And so like, yeah, we're gonna fight for coal mining. It's like that's slavery. It's inhumane for humans to go into a hole filled with gas and die, or have rocks fall on them and die. Now, I'm not comparing having an agency to that, but I think I've made my point.
But with
So
modern, yeah, with modern advancements, we should be able to do things differently. and being able to utilize that correctly is, it's like a copywriter who might have been able to create blog posts, in a couple weeks, saying, well, hey, actually, we're expecting you to be able to do that in 36 hours, 48 hours, like there's going to be a greater expectation on that. So if you're not able to keep up, you're not using the right tools, I think that's when we're going to start to see people, they're stuck with that dinosaur mindset.
Yeah. So
I heard someone say, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was always
Well, I heard someone say that.
Yeah, I don't want to be a callous jerk here. That's not my intent. It's just like, just check in with your brain. And this is an opportunity to be 10 times more effective, 10 times more efficient, to create something that's 10 times better and learn considerably faster. And that is scary. And I want to fully acknowledge the fact that the fear glands are going to kick in here, and acknowledging that and just getting into your body and saying, ugh, I hate the way this feels right now. This is an emotional reaction. And what a great opportunity to learn some incredible skills and become 100 times more valuable than you are right now, and create something 100 times more valuable. Sam Altman has he has a little quote that's online right now, and there's a bet in Silicon Valley about the first one-person billion-dollar company. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think we're going to see, after Elon, most likely we're going to have 3 to 5 trillionaires in the next few years, and we haven't even heard their names yet.
Mm-hmm. They're going to come out of their garage.
Unimaginable growth, opportunity, and abundance that's about to start. So,
yeah, I heard someone say one time, I was going to mention that quote actually about the first $1 billion business for single person, out of home. It's just going to pop up. We're all going to, learn about it. But I heard someone say one time that we've been given as humans a great memory, a very vivid memory. We've been given a very great imagination, and we have a problem being able to control those thoughts. A lot of times we're stuck thinking about the past and remembering negative things or whatever that might look like. Or we're stuck in the future worried about things that haven't even happened and may not ever occur. And very, very rarely are we stuck in the present to actually be able to control that and interact with what we need to do today. And, obviously looking into the future is important to make plans and strategies, but not get caught up into the fears of, where is this going? Am I going to lose all my job? Everything's going to be completely different. No, this is an opportunity right now. If you can be somebody who used to be an okay copywriter can now be an excellent copywriter. Someone who used to be able to design ads can do it even better. So there are ways for you to stand out. It's just, are you going to do that? And hopefully people who are listening are taking action to actually make these things happen and implementing these tools. Now, from an AI perspective, there are so many, thousands, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of tools that are popping up. And I think there's going to be even more as AI can just spit out a new tool. At some point, I'm sure I'll be able to just say, hey, would you create me my own custom copywriting tool? And it'll create you some, program. You could pretty much do that now.
Yeah, we're doing it right now for our clients. We're creating tools that write in your voice. Yeah. We've got we built tools that'll write 2 years worth of content at a 85% level and we'll build the tool and produce the content in less than 4 hours. And after that, you can do a year's worth in less than an hour. And it's good stuff.
Wow.
It's well, let's put it this way. It's passable as is. And then if someone who knows the voice of the brand can make a few tweaks, can go in and search and replace and do some modifying. And I would say within 6 months, we'll have smart agent technology that will edit. And in other words, you'll have an agent that produces the first draft, a second agent that does an editorial, a third that checks the voice, and then a fourth that does an accuracy thing. So it's sort of like a stacked, it's just like a team, right? I mean, really what we're doing for replicating, when you get right down to it, here's what's really going on a big picture level. We are, again, I'm going to use a God metaphor, so get the religious side out of it. We are God created us in his own image, and we are creating we are becoming gods and creating little gods under us, right? That will soon surpass us. This is a very
Mm-hmm.
fractal, metaphysical thing that's going on. And to me, it's just patterns. This is as organic and as natural as nature itself. And
Mm-hmm.
as above, so below. And if you've ever looked through a microscope or a telescope, you see fractals. This is nature and God at work, and we are rediscovering. It won't be long, and we will be creating organic life forms. And right now they're mechanical.
Mm-hmm. Right. And some people, I know some people would, there's probably plenty of ideas on this, but some people would say that AI might be that
Yeah.
that new life form, that we've essentially created, and then
Yep.
yeah,
Could
it's
be.
very
Could
interesting.
be. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think um
there's a reason we're all driven to create. We're
mhm.
driven to create and build and improve, and yeah, this is a massive leap that we're not used to. I think that we're about to experience here shortly. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about these agents, I love that, because I think having it sort of attributed to a team member rather than this copywriting tool, right, is
Mhm.
a really cool way to be able to build a relationship with an AI, where you
Yep.
can do it similarly to how I would with my copywriter, right? Well, here's the messaging matrix, here's the content for my blog post, here's this kind of stuff. Get to know it, and then I want you to write 4 or 5 blog posts and keep in mind X, Y, and Z. It'll be a much
Mhm.
easier conversation like that. And do you see that down the road, maybe that these agents would attend meetings? Would they, would you be able to talk to them and just kind of, hey, let's jump on a call, and then,
Mhm.
yeah, because
Yeah.
that
So
seems like a part of the piece that would be so cool to really sort
yeah,
of humanize it a little bit more.
here's what's so there's a great movie. I love it. It was made about 12 years ago called Her. Joaquin
Yeah.
Phoenix plays Tremblay. I can't remember his first name. And then Scarlett Johansson, sexiest voice in Hollywood, plays this robot. And he basically initiates a bot by answering 2 questions. And then, boop, she's more or less alive in his ear. And if you think of, I think that is representative of what we're about to see. So, and there are already ways to build mini versions of what I'm going to describe right now with a bunch of agent technology. If you just do a search on Microsoft agents, you'll see some of this, and there's a whole bunch of variations. They're open source. And
Okay.
the basic idea is you can say, here's what I say, we'll have this. And there's versions of this right now, but it's still kind of meh. And I actually think there's rumblings that the new iOS 18 is going to have a lot of this built in. And Apple recently has bought, I think, about 30 AI companies. So they've made massive investments of time, money, and people into what I'm about to describe. But here's what I think that either a new, maybe it might not be the next version, but at least 2 versions from Siri will probably have. And there's agent bots. So basically, it will be press a button. You're going to give permission for the system to listen to all your conversations, your Zoom. Look, Meta's been doing it for a long time. So, some people would be like, oh, my privacy, oh, my privacy. You gave up your privacy the moment you bought a smartphone and the moment you put in that infectious disease of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok on your phones. All right.
Yep.
And if you haven't noticed that your ads that you see correlate to you talking, well, guess what? If you have a Samsung TV, those things are evil. They track everything, okay, and they correlate
Hmm.
your geolocation. So anyway, a lot of people will be like
Gosh.
their feathers get hackly when they start
Right.
thinking
And
about what
everybody
we
has
talked
Alexa
about.
now. They have a speaker with Alexa in their kitchen to order groceries. I mean, it's
Yeah.
listening to you. And then there's countless stories of, the police using that and all sorts of things. So yeah, there's a lot of
You can
issues.
be a Luddite, and that's okay. I'm not saying don't be. I'm not. This is no judgment. It's just I think unfortunately we didn't at the time understand what we traded free for, what we thought was free. But back to here's what's about to happen. You'll give this thing permission. Like, let's say you and I are brainstorming. We're talking about stuff. Hey, we should do this. We should do this. We should do this. We should do this. Well, in the background, our little agent's going to be doing all that stuff. And by the end of the call, it'll say, like, here are all the things you talked about. I've already researched them. I figured out how to do them, or I prototyped it for you. Do you want to see them? And here's all the things you agreed to. My agent talked to your agent and has checked the calendar, and these things are available. And here's when the follow-up should be. Do you want to approve this? And I'll do most of the work for you. So it puts us in co-pilot mode. And this will become as normal as carrying around a phone in our pocket, as normal as using Siri or accessing a web browser. Our brains will normalize very, very quickly, just like they did when we started using the internet, or driving cars, or riding horses, or using sticks with pointy things on the end instead of throwing rocks. This is just an evolution of a tool set. It's just it's happening at a rapid race, and it's scary. And again, I don't want to diminish the terror that certain brain types experience. There are certain brain types and characters that absorb and accommodate this and get used to it a lot faster. It's just, this is, in an anthill, there are certain types of ants, and they behave a certain way. They take on different roles, and drones do different things that, the workers do and the queen does, right? Every organism in the universe behaves a certain way. And the human body is a whole bunch of bacteria and enzymes and a whole collection of little things. We are not a thing. We are billions and trillions of little things all stuck together that get along, more or less.
Sure. I always found it interesting back in school, going microbiology and learning about parasites that can take over and control a host. It's pretty interesting to learn about that. They can literally make a cricket jump into water and die because that's where they need to reproduce. And there's just some interesting stuff, about that. I think a lot of interesting things occur inside the human body that we're not even aware of. I mean, a lot of us have parasites. We're one of the few countries in the world that doesn't encourage people or even require parasite cleansing, even though it's a very common thing. And there's bacteria and good bacteria and bad bacteria and all sorts of shit that you learn about. And the more you learn about your body, the more you realize we are just sort of a lab kit of sorts. Yeah. And it really can be boiled down to, what am I putting in? What am I taking out? Like basic science stuff. So and as entrepreneurs, and as I've become older and gotten more tired and more health issues and concerns, you go, okay, man, I've got to invest into my body. I've got to invest into what I'm doing. And I think, part of that, to circle back around, is just to say, the AI can be used to control us, but we can use the AI to actually control and do a lot of things to accomplish. And I don't think I'm worried too much about the control side, because there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, at this point, AI is out there. I can't control it. I can't diminish it. I can't shut it down. So what can I do? Well, I can utilize it as best as I possibly can to benefit. And that's about it.
Yeah. I think, so here's what I believe. I don't completely agree with the futility, and I don't know if that's what your intent was. I would only say that there's one thing you can own, and that is the meaning you give something. Now, you're either unconsciously doing it or you're consciously do it. And Tony Robbins says this. I love it. It's one of his best sayings. It's, we're meaning making machines. And so it's the old story about man's search for meaning, which was about the Holocaust, guy in the Holocaust. And he basically forgave the guards, and he survived. There are people who can be in the worst, painful traumatic situations and walk away fine because they don't sit there and give it a certain meaning, right? That's at the end of the day, it's man's search for meaning. It's we give everything meaning. And if someone did something for us, and no one likes a victim, right? And it's like me, mine. And it's like, this has nothing to do with you. It's like, so you've given yourself a mental disease and a disorder because your interpretation of something, your hallucination, your interpretation of a hallucination you think is happening to you has a certain meaning. I think this is relevant to AI and getting back to, our psychology about how we interpret something and we interpret change. And there are people who can survive the worst of situations because they're mentally sound. And again, I'm not trying to say that there isn't such a thing as a victim. There certainly is. But you can determine what meaning you give something and determine what you let into your head. Like, I don't have social media on my phone. I pay someone to do it. I have a lot of social media. I don't get on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. I don't click on any TikTok links. I think the companies do evil things.
Yeah.
I will not participate in their evil. However, I will use them. Okay. It doesn't, it's, and again, it's like, I don't care what someone else's interpretation of my actions are. It doesn't matter to me, not even a tiny bit. Quit giving a flying F a long time ago, and I'm happier because of it. Sure. I choose to turn it off. It doesn't mean I'm better than, it doesn't mean a damn thing. It's just a choice because I know my brain and I know I can slip down a rabbit hole, and it's not good for my mental well-being or the way I treat the people who matter most and the time I make available. And I treat my time always like it's worth $10,000 per hour. Yeah. So I don't waste it. All right. I don't use it up on stupid stuff. And that's, again, I use that stack for, I look at AI has made me a more valuable human being, a more valuable thinker. I like my brain better when I use it. It's like a creative partner that never sleeps. And I can wake up whenever and I'll be like, oh, I got an idea. I can make it real. So it's a dream amplifier. And I find that very exciting and for me, mentally healthy. And someone else may go down a different rabbit hole and decide it's not. And that's okay too. I don't have anything invested in being right.
I love that. Yeah. I love that you've made that decision. And I think most entrepreneurs are still whoever you are, you're not an entrepreneur, but whoever is out there listening, but you're still struggling with this time management issue, right? I mean, I think when it comes down to it, I was thinking recently going, okay, to be more disciplined in my life, like, how do I accomplish these things? Well, let's take it to the simplest. I need to be more disciplined. Okay. What does that look like? Well, following a clear schedule, accomplishing my tasks for my health and my wellness, accomplishing my tasks for my mental health and my wellness, and learning that when you wake up and you're getting up and you pull up Instagram or Facebook is the first thing that you see, you're going to see a lot of negative. You're going to see a lot of news stories. You're going to see a lot of issues that are going on in the world. So you're starting your day off from this mental place of negativity. Even if you don't realize it, you're starting that way. So I do love the concept of getting off. I am on it, sadly, but I love the concept of being able to get off.
It's fine. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? Plus you make a living doing it. So, who the hell am I to, it's not, this is not a good, bad, right or wrong decision in my opinion.
Totally. Trust me though, if I didn't work on Facebook ads, I would be not on Facebook or Instagram. Yeah. But I do. Yeah, I'm with you on that. But so let's talk about, how does someone get into that mindset? How do you go from that concerned mindset, thinking about the negative, to thinking about, okay, how do we recapture our mind? Because you said, hey, it's essentially trainable. Would you say, or is it something that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So how do you go about training that?
Oh, that's a good question, man. The first one is to value your time. And I told you my $10,000 mindset, which is, I have a rule, and this is because I have a certain personality profile. If my Kolbe score, KOLBE personality test, I'm a 3195. 3 fact finder, which means I'm an intuitive. I don't need a lot of data to make a decision. People who need a lot of data are usually slow decision makers. Okay. A 1, follow through. That means if I don't do it right now, it ain't going to happen. Like, now I learned this by ruining my reputation by making promises. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. And then following up is painful. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It just is. All right. Is it correctable? Maybe, but then it's painful when you're doing things you hate to do, you're bad at, and you don't want to do.
Yes.
It's outside of your character. Okay. I'm a 9 quick start. That basically means I hear it, I'll say, I'm going to do it, and I do it. Okay. So, now some people would say that's impulsive. Well, you know what? It's super useful for fast decision making, and people who are usually quick starts don't panic. They're like good in chaos. Okay. And this isn't an always, it's a tendency. And then implementer is my 5, which means I have a bit of an engineer's mindset. If you're a low implementer and you learn how to delegate, you're in heaven. If you never learn how to delegate and you're a poor and a low implementer, you're in hell, because you're always trying to do things, you never seem to get it done, and you're not happy with the results. So when you really know yourself and know what your capabilities in your brain is, and know what your limits are. So here's how I live my life. I don't live in the gray. I live in the black and white as often as possible. I call it short tail, small container, short tail. So someone says, hey, Mike, can you do this? I'll say, I will. And here are my rules. I'll do it with you right now. Okay. As long as you have my attention. And this is a proper exchange of value. In other words, I know what my value is, and I don't sell my time any longer. I sell outcomes and results, because very few people say, I'll pay you $10,000 for XYZ. And that's why I say no a lot. If it's not valuable, I'm not going to do it unless it is a gift. Okay. Like a family gift, but I just don't do stuff to do it anymore. And I don't do it so I make sure someone feels good, because I know that that's a lie, right? It's just dumb.
Yeah.
So I don't do it anymore. And then the next one is I will schedule it and I will do it with you. Why do I do it with you? Because I'm a crappy follow-upper and I hate homework, and I'm not going to do homework. I never do homework. I never did. When I was a kid, I'm not proud of this, but I used to cheat. Okay. I either outsourced it, so I'd figure out a way to get someone else to do it for me, or I'd figure out how to not do it and still get a grade, or I'd figure out a way to not do it and still produce a result. Okay. Now,
I thought that was what college was all about, learning how to figure out how to pass the test.
I never went to college. I sucked at school. I hated every second of it from the minute I went to kindergartner. I didn't belong ever. Okay. I hated it. So I never did it again. All right. Now, but that meant I had to learn a valuable skill, which is I learned how to code when I was a kid. But anyway, so the third is I'll say, or I'll delegate it, or the answer is no. So I get to live in a little box that serves my character. So I think that's the key thing. Is my first recommendation. How do you get this way? Well, the first one is do a Colby, do an Enneagram, do a Strengths Finder, do a print, do the genius score or something like that. Ray Dalio has his own test. Do as many of those as you can and learn how to interpret them, and then learn how to interpret team profiles so you know how you engage and interact with other people. And don't put yourself in crappy situations where you are forced to be something you are not. That is hell. You will never be happy conforming and contorting. That that's how you break joints. It's how you break your brain. It's how you induce trauma. Okay, and how you deal with that, how you interpret it, right? And knowing what your base character is. And here's what I've learned. People who understand their base character early on and then do the work, whether it's meditation or plant medicine or deep work or a lot of therapy, whatever it is that helps you. Maybe it's religion for some people, right? Those who know themselves well and then deal with that underlying stuff can operate flexibly outside of their normal character traits. It's pretty fascinating. So when you become ego-less and unattached, you don't interpret things and give stuff meaning that has no meaning, right? and you don't project on other people your stuff.
Yeah.
So value your time, know your limits, know yourself, know how you engage and interact with other people, and don't make commitments that are outside of those barriers and borders in order to make someone else feel good. You have to have a really honest relationship. And I've had people now that in the past, I'd say yes to them. And the truth is, I said yes because I thought someday they'd owe me or I'd get something. Okay. Now I'll have someone, I'll give you a good example. Someone reached out to me a while ago, and they know I have a studio and I work in a studio. And I've had studios for a long time. And it's like, hey, can I come over and use your studio? And it was like on a Sunday. And I was like, well, here's the deal. This particular person, I've given this individual lots of time in the past because they're associated with a real famous person. And, I wanted a relationship with that person. Again, it was just small-mindedness and fear-based scarcity-mindedness. And unworthiness. I mean, all kinds of dumb kid boy thinking. And so I'd say yes, and I'd contort myself, and I hated it. And then I ended up wasting tens of thousands of opportunity times, and I got very resentful, and I harbored that resentment. And finally, the last time it came up, I said, I'm gonna be super straightforward and honest with you, and it's not intended to hurt you, but I'm gonna say absolutely not. And why you would think I'd give away my time after you've wasted my time before will never happen again. My time is worth $10,000 per hour. It's $150,000 for 3 days of my time, and that's the only way you're going to get any of my attention or my time for free, or I'm going to spend it with my wife.
Right.
Okay. And I don't care what she thinks, and I don't care how she feels, because as far as I'm concerned, she stole from me. Now, she didn't consciously do it, but I gave myself. Now, I wasn't quite that dick-like, but I made it perfectly clear. And it's interesting because now it readjusted the entire relationship, and now she's very respectful, and she's made asks and referrals because I laid down the law. Right. And those who are abused did it to themselves unconsciously. All right. So it is up to you to figure out your operating system. It ain't anyone else's job, and you aren't a victim. You're either a victim of ignorance or complacency. Okay. Ignorance is forgivable. Stupid isn't. Stupid is when you're practicing ignorance when you know better. Sure. I consider that unforgivable, and I do not associate myself with stupid things or stupid people.
Yeah.
I say no fast. And it's not
That's
my
good.
job
I mean, it sounds like
correct them or help them.
It sounds sort of like you've got to learn about yourself and how you operate. Like you said, learn about your operating system. And then it's almost like making a decision matrix. If this happens, then this happens. And, it becomes more straightforward to you. I know when, start your agency, start your business, you are willing to do a lot for your clients. Hey, you want a landing page built? Sure. Hey, you want an email? Sure. I just need the hours. I need the bills, the billing, and what you find is when you say, no, this is the structure that we have, this is what we operate in, you become really good at that thing. You improve in that thing. People want you for that specific thing because you're an expert. And when you do all of the things and you offer them all the things, they don't respect your time. They expect you to respond to them on the weekend. They expect you to fix their website when it goes down at midnight and you don't have a contract. There's things like that you have to be able to control. And then not only that, personal too. How does that impact your personal life? Like, what am I allowing into my personal life that's stealing time from my family or from, whatever else I have too?
I'll give you one more tip that I thought of that I didn't leave out, which is your core purpose. So I genuinely live to create massive value in other people's lives. So everything I do and I create, now I enjoy doing it, but it is meaningless unless I'm serving someone other than myself. Okay. I serve myself by serving others. So my wife's been doing philanthropic work on the ground in Uganda and India for many years, and now she's getting involved in foster care in San Diego here, and being an advocate. And she grew up in a slum in New York, very, very poor. Her parents were Holocaust survivors from Yugoslavia, and I had to learn to give like she does. It's not my nature, and it's not that I'm selfish. It's because I think I'm terrified. I'm afraid of losing and missing out, and not having enough, being poor. Now I'm aware of it now, so I don't behave the same way as I used to. But my selfish behaviors were really a reaction, and so now I love my clients. Like, I call them, they're my friends. I travel with them. I play with them. We do special things together, and I get to serve them too. I get to amplify the quality of their life and their business and how they serve other people. It's got a huge multiplier effect. And it becomes the case studies and the stories for all my books. The reason I can write a lot of books is because I have lots of stories to tell. I've helped a lot of people. And I don't do it because of some egoic thing. It's because I just love to make and collaborate. It's not fun to be alone. I want to do it with someone who shares the common values. And so I think that was the second part that I want to get past after the know yourself and then practice this behavior is you got to have a damn good why, and you got to feel it viscerally in your body and be, it's up to you to create excitement. So you get out of bed and you want to create or be in your state of, your ultimate superpower, as Dan Sullivan would call your unique ability, or Gay Hendricks calls your zone of genius. That is up to you. It is not up to anyone else, and you don't deserve a damn thing. You owe it to you to figure this out. I think that is one of the purposes of life, is being a child of God. That is your job. It is not someone else's.
So what do you mean by that, being a child of God? Meaning that you are thinking about your own sort of self a little bit more, or what do you mean by that?
So now I'm going to sound, this is going to sound kind of like biblical Christian-y, but I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to tell you what I mean when I say it, which is, we are here to give glory to God. Okay. We are created in God's image. Now, do I believe in a mystical? No, it doesn't have anything to do with that. I do believe that there is a consciousness. I believe that man can't help but be, in a way, a god. Okay. We make babies. Okay. That is a divine miracle. The act of life and creation, right? It's so miraculous, and we take it for granted. And life is around us all the time. It's just so normal, but like, we're an impossible miracle. And I've said this publicly before, so I'm not afraid to say it. At one point, I tried something called 5-MeO DMT, which is considered the most powerful psychedelic known to man. And when you're experience this, it's very common to effectively experience death. It's a ego death, but pure unity with God consciousness. And then it's not uncommon to witness what appears to be like the creation of the universe. Now, I happen to be, from a scientific point of view, I happen to believe that we are all little stardust particles. We're powered by light and sun, and we're energy and consciousness, all mixed and swirled together. And maybe consciousness is energy and power. I don't know. It's like, but my instincts are, these are all waves and vibes, right? And we're all intermixed. And physicists, quantum physicists, and even quantum psychology is arriving at the same conclusion, that there's this odd mixture of all these particles, all these entanglements and string theory. And as we start inventing quantum computers and doing all the experiments with CERN, that this is all a big, beautiful soup of impossible energy and consciousness. And so, back to answering your question, I believe that, or it could be a hallucination. All right. maybe I'm nuts.
Yeah.
That being child of God is when you recognize the divine impossibility and the miracle of life itself, and to acknowledge that is to love and to feel love and share love and care. And also, I don't treat this life as though it's the only one. I think of it as a long continuum. I happen to feel as though our consciousness continues. And I think that there is an enormous amount of truth to mysticism and spirituality and religion. In other words, there's hints of
Yes.
logical truth that exists in all of it. And I also think that it's also an operating system for stealing from dumb people and for grabbing power. It's been abused through taxation and control. So that's why I like to kind of segment it. But anyway, I think we have to operate with a high degree of respect for this divine nature and acknowledge that we just don't know what we don't know. And I think it's logical to believe in a higher power.
Sure. Yeah, no, I from a personal standpoint, have a sort of similar viewpoint and on a lot of what you've said. And I think that, having certain experiences in your life does give you something that people who aren't willing to explore more of the understanding of humanity and their own selves will never get. And I do feel that there has been people who I've connected with and I go, "Oh, I really like that person," but they just they don't seem like they're open to learning, to new ideas, to understanding more about themselves. And you kind of get this feeling, you kind of just, but those who've had those experiences who've been willing to have maybe a psychedelic experience or something like that in your situation, and is to open a door to a new understanding, sort of a new way of thinking. Wow, there's something greater than I've ever been able to understand. And it does, that ego death that you're talking about does give you that perspective on certain areas that you need to improve, certain areas that can be better in your life, certain things. I mean, people stop smoking, they stop drinking, they stop. There's a lot of testimonials from that, and so much science that is left to be learned. Sadly, we're in a country and in a world, I guess, that is very anti most of these things, even though there is a lot of benefit that has been proven.
Yep. And
it's interesting.
That's a battle I have no need to fight. I think what we're doing right now in a discourse and a conversation, and we've got to have room for civil discourse and debate, and great things come from that. It's if I'm able to learn of my ignorance and take on a different point of view, then a little beautiful thing has happened.
I love that. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. I want to be respectful of your time, and we've been going for over about an hour and some change here, but I do want to make sure we talk briefly, at least a little bit, about what you're doing with AI and how you specifically, utilize it to benefit your clients. Because, I mean, you've worked with some massive brands. You're still working with massive brands. Some agencies and other folks that I know of personally who are using you, who have had tremendous success. And I'm curious just to hear what tips and tricks and what sort of strategy overarching do you have that people might be able to apply now, and then maybe either consult with you or use you, or other resources that you might have. I'd love to dig into that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I set something up for you as a gift for everyone who's listening and watching, which is my entry is you can have a copy of my new book, which is AI Accelerator. And the subtitle is How to 10x your productivity, clone your smartest employees, and monetize your IP in the new economy. There's some really good ideas in here. And it's come from speaking at Tony's, speaking for Peter Diamandis, Abundance 360, who did the intro for the book, speaking at MIT. I've had a great life this past year speaking for some amazing places, but really learning what people need to know in order to use AI to amplify the quality of their lives. And I see it
Yeah.
as an abundance amplifier. So you can get that at digitalcafe.ai/PC. Okay. Set up a special
Cool.
link just for your readers and, or your listeners and viewers rather. And so that's sort of like the front end, but I'll describe what we've been doing that I've learned has the most impact in the shortest period of time. And it just so happens to be our funnel as well. So there's a learning lesson here.
Cool.
And if you want,
it's always great when the creator of a tool or system like this is using their own system to generate their own leads. That's the proof. The proof is in the pudding there.
Yeah. Well, if you want, should I show? I can put up a slide. Would you like me to put up the screen?
Let's do it. Absolutely. Okay,
great.
Yep. So you can just click the present button. Yep.
Okay, great. And for anyone who is not watching, I'll do my best to describe it. And what you're going to see is this is our current funnel. And I'll just transparently go through it. So our front end is my book. Okay, so that's basically the front end of a funnel. And now I've got an AI that does all this. And then we do, the first thing that people say is, what should I do and in what order? And I'm like, well, you need a blueprint, right? It's a roadmap. And what we've done is we've figured out there's about 30 core problems every business owner has. And we built tools, what we call playbooks, to solve most of those. And they're like AI enhanced tools. But first of all, it's like, what should I use in what order? What will have the most impact on my business? So we've devised some ways of just asking good questions. And then the next one is, well, how do I start using it in my organization? And there's two primary ways. One of them is learn about it. So we have a course and it's training. It's a 90-day cohort. It's designed for founders, but then they bring in their employees to learn as well. So part of it is I think founders need to learn how to think in AI and know what's possible, and also lead with character and say, okay, let's get there together. And then the other one, the shortcut, is something we call fractional AI, which is a huge opportunity right now. And by the way, the training that I just covered, we're actually going to be rolling that out for young people. So my son has a little AI business of his own. He's been consulting with AI at 21. And I see a world where instead of going to colleges that put you in debt for 20 years, why don't you start making some money and become, I registered this, a clear collar worker. So you got blue collar, you got white collar, you got clear collar. Clear collar is unaccredited AI enhanced workers that can learn on demand and create value very, very rapidly, like in days or weeks instead of years. So anyway, fractionals where
that's a cool term. So you coined that term? Is that what you?
Yeah. I
love it. That's smart.
Registered it. Yeah. So and my goal is to create clear collar workers to help young people. It's the equivalent of blue collar in the AI world, and there's so many opportunities. So you go to college to learn, not to become an indentured servant that's manipulated by what I believe has become a very corrupt system that's producing moronic socialists instead of educated value creators. But fractional AI is when you work with a really smart person with a 2-hour sprint that's going to create money, give you your time back, help you create more time for your teams, or create more value, which is, why not create a product that could cost 3 times more without adding more personnel, which would add an order of magnitude of profitability to your company. And then part of what I do, I've been doing this for 6 years. My core business is actually, I create businesses and brands in a week. I've built and sold 6 companies, and it took me that many times and about 30 years to realize I love creating businesses. I hate running them. I don't want to be good at it. It's not important that I'm good at it. So
yeah, exactly.
Now we use AI to make it happen a lot faster. So our record is 0 to 34 million in 2 weeks. And we've created a lot of $1 million businesses and products in a matter of a week before. Then we've got this tool, the Digital Cafe AI / again, just for you, /PC. Yep. Cool. And then we do custom development. So a lot of our people will come to us and say, well, I have an idea. could it become a product, or could we automate something internally? So we've been building products, some really interesting stuff. And then, when, again, just transparently, our whole thing starts with the book to a blueprint, to training, to the fractional, to the, my big products, 150 grand. And then our AI sales tool, it depends on, it has to be customized. It's just the nature of the beast.
Sure.
Then we got annual contracts that vary all the way up to like, $1 million a year. And then we have a lower tiered physical product. But I think, just to wrap it up, the easy way to learn and play is just get the book and try out the tool. Go to Digital Cafe AI/PC, where you'll get the book and you'll experience what I think is the future of AI selling. It's going to evolve really, really fast. I've got a little bit of a first mover advantage right now, but that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. And it doesn't mean I'm right. It just means I'm making something that's useful to me and other people. And it's definitely, like, my sales guy right now is overbooked. I have the best quality problem. I need more salespeople. It's nuts.
That's a good problem to have. And you have, I'm sure, closers and setters and all that set up and whatnot.
The platform does the setting now. So Digital Cafe, what it does is it, you want to see something cool?
I'd love to. I think the users would love to.
I'll give you a quick 3-minute. I'll play this for you and your folks, and then you can ask me questions. So welcome to the world of 3-second attention spans and fewer than 20 seconds to get a prospect's attention, engage them, get to know, like, and trust you, and say, I want and need what you have. Let's make a deal. Now, you spend a fortune generating traffic and leads, but chances are your systems don't quickly, consistently, and competently follow up 24/7, 365. Money loves speed and time kills deals. Now, introducing Digital Cafe AI, a relationship building AI that will take your hard-earned leads and make them feel like you're sitting down with them for a cup of coffee, listening to their needs and responding to them with a personalized, useful, resourceful solution. It's the perfect AI team: an A-plus marketer who gets attention and captures leads, a friendly salesperson who asks the most engaging questions, a data nerd who researches, enriches, and qualifies your prospects and predicts their behaviors, an engaging copywriter who follows up in your voice with stories that connect so your prospect feels seen, heard, and understood, and a delivery genius who ensures every message is read, heard, and watched minutes after first contact. Your prospects get a hyper-personalized follow-up message, story, proposal, brochure, videos, audios, voicemail, email, and a custom website that gives them a sense of hope, possibility, and vision to invest in your product or service. It creates beautiful magazine-quality PDF reports. It even sends real handwritten cards and letters right to their home. A Digital Cafe AI does hours or days of work that normally requires an expensive team of specialists in minutes. You get instant notifications of qualified prospects, so you or your team can take over the conversation or let AI do the work for you. You see everything your prospect does in real time. It's the fastest, easiest, automated way to get attention, engagement, and trust to close bigger deals faster. Now, the experience blows away your prospect. Every deal closes faster with less work. No HR issues, no complaints, no excuses, no vacations, always on, 24/7, 365. Now, it's not about taking the human interaction out. It's about filling the void where the human component falls on its face. Now, you're probably asking, is it easy? Does it work? Will it work for me and my business? A Digital Cafe AI is a done-for-you service that can be adapted to any B2B or B2C business, understand any language anywhere in the world, and it integrates with every CRM system and even connects to WhatsApp, which means 100% deliverability with no canned spam, SMS, text, or GDPR limitations. Now, money loves speed, and time kills deals. So visit Digital Cafe AI to see how it will work for you.
It's cool.
All right. Thank you.
Mike, I like what you're doing with this because, I was recently having a conversation with head of marketing from Hunter.io, which is a lead
Oh yeah.
generation company. Really cool. I use it all the time. And had him on the podcast, and we were talking about how do we accurately intersect with AI helping us to actually have a better relationship with our customers, not
Yes.
one that's further away. And I think that's what your tool does a great job of talking about in that video is making it clear, look, we're not trying to make this less personal by having a
Mhm.
bot respond to them.
That's right.
Actually, your customer is going to be so much happier that instead of a generic email or instead of a generic follow up from somebody who's copying and pasting, maybe they're a real human, you're actually going to get real conversations. And I think that's a massive impact in this for what you're doing. And the truth is, I know as a marketer who has had an agency and has an agency that, when I produce leads for a client, oftentimes they go, well, these leads aren't working. I say, well, what's your follow-up process? Well, I called them a day later or 2 days later, and I don't know. They didn't even remember
Mhm.
they clicked on the ad. And I go, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's, you got to
Yep.
respond within minutes in order
Yeah.
to actually convert somebody. And
Yeah.
otherwise they're on to the next thing. So the fact that you have mentioned that and you set that up, I think is a massive, massive benefit for folks. And you don't need the whole team anymore. You've got a team that can help replicate you. So if you're a
Hmm.
startup and you're a freelancer or a digital nomad, investing in this is actually going to get you a lot more than you would if you went out and hired one copywriter. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
so
And that gets back to what you were originally asking. It's like, well, what about agencies? And it's like, well, here's what I
that's
believe
right.
is the
Hmm.
notion of a static website is dead. Okay. Every single page that this thing produces is dynamic for an individual. And so the
Hmm.
only page you need is something that says, hey, you know, I'm going to tell you exactly how we can work together, how I can help you. Just answer a few questions. So it's this hyper customization, and in time, it'll get down to like seconds. Right now, it's actually hard to render this custom video. It is lengthy, but I don't do what you do. I am not in the lead gen business. I am not
Hmm.
in the social business. So um, this is um, what you do is incredibly challenging, and I'd rather just do this one thing that I don't think anyone does well right now. It's that in
Yeah.
between thing. So and I needed it. Like it's as I told you, my sales guys are booked, and it's because this works so well.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just a matter of taking those qualified ones and closing them, and having and what I need next is what you do, which is that front end. It's cold email, and
Yeah.
to get people in, and also I haven't done ads in forever because at one point I lived on them, and then it quit working, and I never re-engaged again, and it scared the hell out of
Yeah.
me. I woke up
I
one day
understand. I
$150,000 in debt.
understand.
It was like, ah. But
Yes. Yes.
finding qualified partners, which gets back to the big thing, which is what humans do well, is we're aesthetic. We
Hmm.
have intuition, and there's no replacing that, at least for now. We'll have something that helps us make better decisions with a lot more data.
Yes, exactly. Well, Mike, one of the things, so I talked to another person at a company called SendSpark, which is interesting. She's the founder of SendSpark. And
Mm,
basically, what they do is they send out cold video emails essentially at scale with
yep.
customized AI so you can replace names in your
Yes.
video. So instead of saying, hey,
Hmm.
Mike, it's hey, Preston. You can do all sorts of customization there and send those emails out. And we're talking about, okay, well, what's the lead generation look like now? So
Hmm.
before I would run campaigns for people and I would generate leads for businesses or generate leads for customers, right?
Yep.
Now you can go to hunter.io or you could go to um, all sorts of different companies that we use. I think I use, let me see, what's the name of it? Forget.
Apollo.
Apollo is the one that
Yeah.
I use.
Yep.
And it's great. And I think the difference now is people go, well, I can actually pay for a service like this, find the specific businesses that I have. And
Hmm.
now how do I follow up with them? Well, you can use AI. You can
Hmm.
use something like Octopus CRM or a LinkedIn automator to go
Yeah.
follow them or like their profiles. Then you can cold email them and say, "Hey, I just found you on LinkedIn and wanted to connect personally." And
Yep.
it's a great way to connect the dots very inexpensively. You're not spending
Mm.
tens of thousands of dollars paying a marketer and paying ad spend to get those leads that may or may not work. You're paying maybe a couple $100 a month to get a service that can download those leads for you, and then another service that can go test them out for you. So a lot of
Yeah.
interesting ways to do it now that don't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars and hope that those ads are performing and getting the right people.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
there's new methods.
Yeah. And I'm curious. So this might not be right for the podcast, but do you know what the difference is between Cleverly and Octopus? I know there's so many different LinkedIn automation tools. I actually was involved with one years ago, and I just uh, there's a variety of reasons I stopped. One of them is sometimes the automations violate terms of service. I just didn't want my brand associated with that. But are you
Yeah.
have you found
So
anything that's great right now? And are you using any of these?
yes, yeah. So I have used Octopus CRM, and I liked it. It was the first. It was one of the few that I found that does have a built-in limiter, and so it knows specifically where it can send, how it can send so many email messages on LinkedIn.
Yep.
But then it
Yep.
can also send out the emails invitations. So it can
Hmm.
send an additional 100 or something a day of email notifications through LinkedIn, which I have found to be super actually perform even better, I think, than a direct
Great.
request on LinkedIn. So you get an email that says, "Hey, Preston is requesting to follow you," versus just a notification on LinkedIn saying Preston's trying to connect with you, I should say.
Yeah.
Um,
That's cool.
and then I use Hunter then to follow up with that engagement. So a few days later, I'll send an email that will be automated and say, "Hey, I just connected with you," and then a couple follow-ups from there. Um, but yeah, the response rate, open rates, everything is really massive. It's a huge difference from anything I could be doing, and I don't have to go build the ads, spend the money, generate the leads. I can do it almost immediately. So it's a
Yeah.
great tool.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is
Absolutely.
that's a great taker awayer for me. And
Yeah. Anything I can
I
do to help you, Mike, please. I appreciate you
oh
coming
yeah.
on the podcast. I know your time is very valuable. My time is very valuable. We're so grateful to have you. And I think there was a really cool conversation. I hope we can help continue it and have more
Yeah.
down the road.
Well, it's my pleasure. I carved this out for you. It turns out I had a gentle day today after speaking. I was away for 2 days, so
Good.
I always have a little buffer in between to get caught up. And my team's busy working behind the scenes, so I didn't have to. And total pleasure. I'm looking forward to continuing the relationship and the conversation, and I feel the same way. So let's just keep this conversation rolling. And in the meantime, I hope everyone goes and grabs the book
Yes.
and enjoy the content, the information that's in there, and hopefully you'll find a way to increase your value, especially if you're an agency person. I think you're in a position where you can create a lot more opportunity and wealth for yourself than in the past. And this is a perfect time to differentiate yourself and dive in feet first and create different conversations and not be stuck in a red ocean, but create a new blue ocean for yourself.
I love that, Mike. I appreciate it. I think everybody hopefully feels encouraged by this conversation and interested more in finding out. Definitely go download the book. Take a look at it. Again, this is the Approved Perspective podcast, a marketing collaboration podcast powered by Approved Social. So grateful to have you, Mike, and look forward to seeing how things go.
Thanks, brother.